Tracy with Bewitched Crafts, and welcome back to the 12 Days of Cards. This is our second card in the series, and we're starting with a standard white daisy card base measuring 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to start with a piece of New England Ivy cardstock, and I'm going to emboss it with our Quatrefoil embossing folder. Simply place my piece inside, run it through my die cutting machine, and adhere this to my card front. It looks a bit like this. For my next step, I'm going to create a border to cover this half of the card front. I'm using French vanilla cardstock and our Fancy Borders thin cut set. I've created a border here on an angle across the card and run this through my die cutting machine with a piece of purple repositionable tape. You can see it made a nice pattern here with a stitched edge, and it's going to end up here on our card front. But first, I need to do some stamping. I'm going to prepare this for embossing using an anti-static powder. Apply it generously. And we're working with the Comfort and Joy Card Making Stamp Plus Thin Cut Set. We're using the sentiment Noel. I've applied that to my acrylic block, and now I'm going to add some VersaMark ink. Before we get started, I am going to use the foam backing piece that came with the carrier sheet to give this some cushion. Tell my VersaMark is juicy. Let me get that right here. Press firmly, lift straight up, and now we'll apply embossing powder. I'm using gold. And I want to cover the sentiment completely. I've got a coffee filter here that I'm going to use to catch the leftovers so that I can reuse them. Just kind of funnel them back into my jar when we're done. For now, I just want to kind of tap off and make sure I have good coverage. Okay, so I can see a little bit clinging here around the outline. I'm just going to use a small paintbrush to whisk that away. So any stray pieces of embossing powder, you can kind of flick the paper or use the paintbrush. We want those all off before we apply heat. I'm just going to move a few things out of the way and get my heat tool. Now I like to work with my piece elevated. I think it's better. I think the paper curls when you apply heat with something underneath it, and I think it stays much flatter if the air flows through the paper. So I am using a pair of long-handled tweezers. I have a small heat gun here. I'm going to turn it on and heat it up before I use it. And apply heat from both the front and the back. And then you can see it start to melt. Okay. I hope that's catching the light so you can see the transformation there. We're going to start to put this card together. I'm going to adhere this piece with my tape runner. I'm going to apply the tape runner without any pressure. I'm just going to line up and come down on this edge and pull, lift straight up. You don't need a lot. It's quite sticky. And we're just going to line it up with this edge and place that on our card. Next, I'm going to make a poinsettia to go here on the card front. To do that, I'm using the dies from the Comfort and Joy Scrapbooking set. So before we had the card making set of the same name, Comfort and Joy, and now we're going to use the dies from the Scrapbooking set. So you can see there are 3 flowers here that can be stamped and die cut. I'm just using the dies. For the largest piece, I've cut a piece of French vanilla, and again with the smallest. But the middle layer I have cut from Vellum. I've then taken each layer and I've kind of worked the paper to create a little bit of a cupped design. I'm just pushing my fingernail in and then lifting from underneath. You can make the edges of the leaves or the flower petals curl with a tiny bit of pressure and a paintbrush. I've done the first 2. Now let's go ahead and tackle this vellum. So my fingernail goes here at the base. I'm lifting up first and then rolling out. See the difference? Nail at the base, paintbrush behind, lift up, and roll out. And you can make this as much of a 3D kind of dramatic effect as you like. It's totally up to you, and you can just keep working with the paper until you get the design that pleases you. Now I'm going to layer these pieces together with liquid glue. I'm going to start with the French vanilla piece. I'm going to apply a small amount of glue. Now my vellum piece goes in the center, and I'm going to offset it to make a fuller flower. And then I'm also going to add this center piece that I cut from French vanilla. And again, I'm kind of offsetting that. I'm using liquid glue here because I have a little bit more play. So if things are a little too lined up, I can move them around while it sets. Then I'm going to apply some glue to the back and add that to our card front. Now our poinsettia still needs a center, and you have a couple of different options here. You could use seed pearls. You could use our pearl adhesive gems. You could use glitter gems in gold, but I'm using Stickles. So this is goldenrod Stickles. It is like an adhesive glitter, and I'm just going to come into the center here and apply 3 dots of glue. That is our finished card for day 2 of the 12 Cards of Christmas. Be sure to check back tomorrow to see our next project. Thanks for joining me.